28-year-old Aussie golf sensation Cameron Smith, the 2022 Champion Golfer of the Year, joined LIV in August for a fee reported to be in the neighborhood of $100 million, or as Smith put it, generational money. Stay tuned and don't go away, because Cameron Smith begs for LIV major spots as report surfaces of early PGA struggles, plus how much players won during LIV's inaugural $255 million season. First up, why is Cameron Smith begging LIV golf players to be allowed to play in golf's 4 major championships in 2023? Well, you're about to find out. Smith is imploring officials to allow LIV golf players to participate in the major championships in 2023 following reports that he had a difficult start to life on the PGA Tour. Smith recently opened up during an interview with an Australian Daily Telegraph and says that what has irked him the most about the controversy created since the emergence of LIV Golf. Smith doesn't deny joining LIV for the generational paycheck and commends other players who have crossed over as well, players such as Harold Varner III, who have joined LIV and proudly admit that it was indeed all about the Benjamins. At least, Harold was honest about his motivations for joining LIV, and I think people should respect that. Harold also admitted that he finds it unfortunate that some people look at him differently now and see him as some sort of traitor. Despite crossing over to LIV, Smith doesn't like new LIV golf players who harshly criticize the PGA and DP World Tour and says the angst comes from guys who have come through pathways on the DP World Tour backstabbing that tour or saying how bad it is. That's the part that irks me. I just don't think you should bag where you have come from. As far as playing in the 4 major tournaments goes, Smith explained that he thinks the majors should stand above all the politics and that if they really want the best product and the best players playing against each other in the world, they must allow LIV players to compete. Next up, how much did the highest-paid LIV golf player win during LIV Golf's inaugural $255 million season? Well, let's take a look. We've all heard non-stop chatter about the astronomical sums of money paid to LIV golf players who've crossed over from the PGA Tour and DP World Tours, and we'd like to separate fact from fiction by looking at the raw data. So this is how much every single golfer who played in an LIV golf tournament earned in the inaugural 8-event $255 million season that Dustin Johnson dominated. Speaking of Johnson, the golf star walked away with more than $35 million in earnings this season, the most out of any LIV player. Johnson announced his resignation from the PGA Tour back in June prior to LIV's event at Centurion Club outside of London. At the time, this was a big risk for Johnson as the PGA Tour was banning players left, right, and center, and even banning players from major championships. Since then, for many observers, the world of professional golf has essentially been ripped apart. LIV and PGA, DP World players have become embroiled in heated confrontations at times, and for some players, the LIV versus PGA beef has become personal. Never in the history of pro golf has the sport found itself in such a sad state of affairs, and it's really unfortunate to see. Other players have grown sick and tired of the constant bad press and the tension between the two rival leagues, and it's become a major distraction for many pros who just want to play professional golf, something that for most players is a childhood dream. Up next, how much cash have other LIV golf players made? We're about to find out. LIV Golf's ultra-rich Saudi backers have dished out a ridiculous sum of money and have promised to invest $2 billion in the hopes of ensuring LIV's global domination. The rival series plans to recoup some of its investment by securing a TV deal while selling off the team's franchises for profit. LIV Golf's inaugural season saw a total of 7 $25 million events take place and one $50 million tournament, which culminated in the final team championship at Trump National Doral, which was won by Dustin Johnson's 4 Aces GC side. To leave the PGA Tour, Johnson demanded that LIV pay him a sign-on fee of approximately $125 million, and they agreed. Of the whopping $35,637,767 that Johnson earned in 2022, $18 million came from a bonus paid to him for becoming LIV's inaugural champion in the points race. But for now, let's see how much money the top 5 LIV players earned for the 2022 season. In second place is Brandon Grace with more than $16 million. In third place, we've got Peter Uihlein with nearly $13 million in earnings. In fourth place is Patrick Reed with just over $12 million in winnings for the 2022 season. And in fifth place, we've got Tyler Gooch with more than $10 million in earnings this year. Stay tuned and don't go away because we're bringing you the latest pro golf news. Next up, who was the PGA Tour's most impactful player of 2022? You're about to find out. For the 2022 season, the Elvis Presley of golf, Tiger Woods, only played 9 rounds of golf. Despite playing so few rounds, Woods is the PGA Tour's most impactful player of 2022. The PGA Tour awarded Woods with a $15 million bonus in accordance with its new Player Impact Program, or PIP for short. According to Mark Schlabach of ESPN, Woods won the top honor in each of the PIP's first 2 years. The PGA Tour uses 5 criteria to determine which players have the most impact on the sport's popularity, and the criterion is rather simplistic. The PGA takes into account how often a player is Google searched, as well as Q rating, Nielsen brand exposure rating, MVP index rating, and meltwater mentions. For 2022, the formula was reconfigured and the meltwater mentions were added to place more of an emphasis on the players mentioned on broadcast TV and other traditional media outlets, including social media. Woods played in only 3 PGA Tour events, the Masters, the PGA Championship, and the Open Championship, and played 4 rounds in an event only once. Clearly, Woods continues to have a profound impact on the game of golf despite being more than a decade past his prime. To this day, Tiger is still largely considered to be the greatest golfer to ever step foot on a golf course. Long after he retires, the golf world will continue to talk about him, study his games, and his name will be etched on the pages of every golf history book. Up next, is Augusta National's iconic 13th hole receiving some major upgrades? You bet. For years, rumors have swirled that significant changes would be coming to Augusta National's 13th hole. Aerial photos taken by Eureka Earth in August of 2022 confirmed that work had already begun on the iconic par 5 hole, and that it would play much longer once the project was completed. New aerial photos reveal that the work is now finally complete, although Augusta National won't confirm the exact yardage of the new tee until Masters Week. Rumors are again swirling that the hole could be nearly 600 yards in length, which means players will have to walk much further to reach the hole. Some observers surmise that the hole has been extended by at least 40 or 50 yards, which, if true, would make the 13th hole play somewhere in the 550 to 560-yard range. It doesn't sound like much, but it will prevent the top players in the world from hitting the ball over the trees and overpowering the hole, which is what the big hitters have been doing in recent years. Some say the 13th hole's risk-reward ratio will be greater now that players have a longer club in their hand on the second shot. So, do you think the changes made to Augusta National's 13th hole were a good idea? We'd love to know your thoughts, so feel free to drop a comment down below. Finally, is Gary Player flip-flopping on LIV Golf? Months after criticizing LIV Golf, Gary Player is once again taking a more favorable stance toward the Saudi-backed golf series. In other words, he keeps flip-flopping. Player recently spoke to a reporter and gave his thoughts on the ongoing feud between LIV and the PGA Tour, and says all he wants is respect and happiness for golfers who cross over to the Great White Sharks Rebel League. Player made it clear that he has no objections to people going and playing the LIV Tour and thinks it's great that people have an opportunity to make some cash when they can't play anymore. Player says that many aging pro golfers see LIV as a new lease on life. However, Player did open up about some of the things that are troubling him and said, "I don't like the war that is happening between LIV and the PGA. Golf is too good. Golf gave us our dream to start the tour and play. And so we must have respect across the board. We've all got to have respect for each other and go on with our own lives. I just hope everything works out well and everybody is happy." I gotta say, I wholeheartedly agree with Gary Player here. Enough is enough. And I really think it's time to move on and let bygones be bygones. Player is absolutely right. Golf is too good for this sort of never-ending bickering. It's nonsense, and it's hurting one of the world's greatest games. Golf has long been known as the gentleman's game, and all this fighting doesn't seem very gentlemanly. Well, that is a wrap for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe.